My name is Amelia. If you are between 60 and 80, man or woman, please don't skip this video. What I'm about to share took me most of my life to understand, and I wish someone had said it to me earlier. I am 64 years old now, and I can tell you exactly when I stopped waiting. It was not a dramatic day. There was no argument, no loss, no sudden shock that forced me to change. It was ordinary, almost forgettable. I was sitting alone in a familiar room on a sofa that has supported me through years of tired evenings, listening to the quiet sounds of a house that knows me well. The room looked the same as it always had. Soft light through the window, a small table beside me, nothing out of place, and yet something inside me felt unsettled. For most of my life, I believed waiting was responsible. Waiting felt careful. Waiting felt like proof that I was mature and sensible. I told myself that waiting meant I was wise enough to choose the right moment. That afternoon, something shifted. I realized waiting had not protected me. It had cost me, not loudly, not all at once, but quietly, year after year. At 64, you stop measuring time the way you once did. You no longer think in decades, you think in seasons. You notice how quickly 1 year turns into the next. You become aware that time is no longer something you can assume will always be there. That awareness changes how you look at your past. I thought about all the moments when I told myself, not now, all the plans I postponed, all the decisions I delayed because the timing didn't feel perfect. I had convinced myself that patience was always the better choice. But patience, I was beginning to understand, can become a hiding place. Before I go any further, let me pause here for a moment. If stories like this matter to you, stories told slowly, honestly, without noise, I invite you to subscribe to this channel now. These reflections don't arrive loudly, and they are easy to miss if you are not subscribed. If you miss them, you miss the chance to recognize parts of your own life in someone else's words. Now, let me continue. When I was younger, waiting felt harmless. Time felt generous. I believed opportunities would still be there when I was ready. I believed there would always be a clearer sign, a better moment, a safer path forward. What I did not understand then was that waiting itself is a decision, and every decision has a cost. That day, sitting on that sofa, I finally named it. Waiting was the most expensive mistake I made. Waiting did not feel like fear to me. It felt like responsibility. From the time I was young, I was taught that careful people survived longer. In my family, being patient was praised. Being cautious was admired. Acting quickly or changing direction suddenly was seen as careless, even selfish. I learned early that approval came from restraint. I remember being told, more than once, that good things come to those who wait. That phrase stayed with me. It sounded wise, it sounded gentle, and it fit neatly into the life I was building. When choices appeared, I measured them against how they would look to others. Would this make sense? Would this appear sensible? Would this invite unnecessary questions? Waiting often felt like the safest answer because it avoided explanation. I told myself I was being mature. I told myself I was protecting the people who depended on me. I told myself there would be a better time later. And the truth is, waiting worked for a while. It kept things calm. It kept life predictable. It kept conflict low. I rarely felt panic or chaos. From the outside, my life looked steady, even admirable. But what I did not notice was how often I used waiting to avoid discomfort. Not dangerous. Discomfort. Discomfort looks small when you are young. It feels temporary. But avoiding it repeatedly teaches you something without your permission. It teaches you to trust comfort more than curiosity. Each time I waited instead of acting, it became easier to wait again. Each delay felt justified on its own. Together, they formed a habit. I did not wake up one day and decide to put my life on hold. I simply postponed things quietly, one sensible decision at a time. Waiting became my way of staying respectable, of staying useful, of staying out of trouble. And because no one warned me otherwise, I believed I was doing the right thing. Only much later did I understand that responsibility, when taken too far, can quietly limit a life. Waiting had begun as wisdom, but somewhere along the way, it became a shield from judgment, a shield from uncertainty, and, without me realizing it, a shield from growth. There were many moments in my life when something opened in front of me, quietly and without ceremony. They did not arrive as grand offers or dramatic crossroads. They came as small invitations, a suggestion from someone I trusted, a chance that required rearranging my routine, an idea that asked me to step outside what I already knew. Each time I told myself the same thing: I'll come back to this later. I said it calmly, confidently, as if later were a place I could visit whenever I chose. In my working years, opportunities often appeared when I felt least prepared: a different role, a chance to learn something new, an opening that did not come with guarantees. I would listen politely, nod in understanding, and then explain why the timing was not right. I had reasons. I always had reasons. I had responsibilities. I had people depending on me. I had a life that worked well enough. Taking a step sideways felt unnecessary, even indulgent. So I stayed. And when I stayed, I felt relieved. Relief that I did not have to explain myself. Relief that I did not have to risk looking uncertain. Relief that I could continue doing what I already knew how to do. What I did not feel, at least not right away, was loss. Loss does not announce itself when you delay something. It waits. As the years passed, those opportunities did not disappear all at once. They simply stopped coming. I noticed it gradually: fewer conversations, fewer questions about what I might want next, fewer chances to choose. People around me began to see me in a certain way: reliable, steady, unchanging. That reputation felt earned. It also felt limiting. I watched others make choices I had postponed. Some struggled, some succeeded, but all of them moved. I stayed still. At the time, I told myself that staying still was a form of loyalty to my work, to my family, to the life I had built. Now, looking back, I can see that staying still was also a way of avoiding the fear of starting again. Each time I told myself I would return to an opportunity later quietly moved further away. By the time I realized this, years had passed, and the version of me who could have said yes no longer existed in the same way. Waiting does not charge you immediately. That is why it is so easy to trust. When you wait, nothing bad seems to happen. Life continues. Bills get paid. Relationships stay intact. From the outside, everything looks fine. And because nothing collapses, you assume nothing is being lost. But the cost of waiting is not paid in money. It is paid in confidence. Over time, I noticed that my willingness to choose began to weaken, not suddenly, gradually. Each delay taught me that it was safer not to decide. That lesson settled in quietly. I stopped volunteering ideas. I stopped imagining different versions of my life. I became skilled at explaining why change was unnecessary. The most expensive thing waiting for me was momentum. Momentum is difficult to explain to someone who has never lost it. It is the feeling that you can still move, still adapt, still learn. When momentum fades, you begin to doubt your ability to begin again. I also lost trust in myself. When you delay long enough, you start to believe that your instincts cannot be relied on. You learn to silence them before they speak too loudly. You become cautious even with your own thoughts. That kind of caution is exhausting. I watched younger people move forward with uncertainty and thought they were brave. I told myself I was being sensible, but privately I wondered when I had stopped believing I could do the same. Waiting also affected how others saw me. People stopped asking what I wanted. They assumed I was content where I was. They were not unkind. They were responding to the version of me I had presented for years. That realization hurt more than I expected, because I understood then that waiting had not only shaped my life, it had shaped my identity. At 64, I could finally see the full cost. Time had passed, confidence had thinned, possibilities had narrowed, and none of it happened because I failed. It happened because I waited. The moment I finally understood did not arrive with drama. There was no argument that forced me to look inward, no loss that shook me awake, no sudden event that demanded attention. It came quietly, in a way that almost felt unfair, because it offered no one else to blame. I was at home, moving through a day like many others. I was sorting through old papers, the kind you keep longer than you should because throwing them away feels like erasing proof that you once had plans. Receipts, notes, half-written ideas, things that once mattered enough to save. As I looked at them, I noticed a pattern I could no longer ignore. Dates were spread years apart, yet the thoughts were the same. The intentions repeated. The beginnings never became middles, and the middles never reached an end. That was when it became clear. I had not been waiting for the right time. I had been waiting to feel certain, and certainty never came. I sat down and let that realization settle. It was uncomfortable, but it was also honest. For the first time, I did not rush to explain my choices or defend them. I simply looked at them as they were. I understood then that waiting had felt safer than deciding, because deciding would have required me to accept responsibility for the outcome. Waiting allowed me to believe that the future was still open, even as it quietly narrowed. That understanding was painful, but it was also freeing, because it shifted something important. I no longer saw my past as a series of mischances caused by bad luck or difficult circumstances. I saw it as the result of a habit I had practiced for years. Naming that habit gave me clarity. At 64, clarity matters more than comfort. It does not erase what has been lost, but it changes how you carry it. I did not feel anger toward my younger self. I felt compassion. She did what she believed was right with the understanding she had at the time. But I also felt something else, resolve. Not the kind that demands big changes or dramatic reinvention, the quieter kind. The kind that allows you to stop pretending that waiting will eventually turn into action on its own. At that moment, I finally understood what the cost had been. Waiting had not just delayed my life, it had decided it. Making peace did not mean rewriting my past. It meant finally telling the truth about it. For a long time, I believed that accepting my choices required defending them. That if I admitted the cost of waiting, I would have to live with regret. But I have learned that regret and honesty are not the same thing. Honesty allows you to see your life clearly without punishing yourself for it. At 64, I do not feel the need to rush anymore. I am not trying to reclaim everything I delayed. I am not chasing a version of myself that belonged to another time. What I am doing now is simpler and harder. I am listening to myself. When something matters to me now, I no longer tell myself to wait until I feel certain. I accept that certainty rarely arrives first. Action does. This does not mean my life has become dramatic or unstable. It means it has become honest. There is dignity in admitting that waiting once felt right and that it later proved costly. There is strength in saying that aloud, especially at an age when many people expect you to remain quiet about what you have learned. If you are listening to this and you recognize parts of yourself in my story, I hope you do not hear it as advice. I am not telling you what to do. I am simply sharing what I finally understood. Time moves differently for each of us. Some lessons arrive early, others arrive later than we would like. What matters is not when understanding comes, but whether we are willing to accept it when it does. Before I end, let me say this gently. If you value stories like this, stories told without urgency, without exaggeration, and without pretending, you are welcome to like this video and subscribe to the channel. These reflections are shared quietly, and they are easy to miss if you are not subscribed. Thank you for listening. This was my story, and now it has been spoken.